Well, that's a very threatening looking sky, I have to say. That's very thick stratocumulus, some layers of altocumulus and altostratus in there probably also. And this is what we're seeing on the METAR reports. Got a broken ceiling at about 2,200 feet, overcast at 2,800. You can kind of see that theme throughout these observations. So these are definitely in the 2,000 to 3,000 foot band. And I think what might be causing that is very high humidities and maybe a capping inversion, helping to stratify these layers. Yeah, there's the morning sounding from Fort Worth, and I think what we're seeing here is the tropical air kind of flowing beneath that elevated mix layer, and it looks like two bands of that possibly. So we'll be looking for that on the charts. So what this is telling us is that when the clouds form, they condense very quickly because the temperature and dew point line are very close together. They form cloud material and they stratify beneath these inversions. Well, there's the satellite in motion, and you can see that moisture coming up from the Gulf. That's one of the dominant features in addition to that baroclinic system there up in the Midwest. Out in the western U.S., we've still got that system out there in California, mostly an upper-level low in the Los Angeles area, and it's got a little bit of a frontal system associated with that. Also, the frontal system we had in northern Arizona has kind of stalled out, and I went ahead and did frontalysis for the markings on that for now, but that could certainly reform depending on what happens out west. And out in Texas, as we mentioned, that front moving through, being driven by this 1024 millibar high. And of course, north of the high, that's a good place for downslope warming. Not much warming, it's only into the 40s and 50s, but it is definitely VFR, good weather, and clear skies. So this is kind of a good image because it shows the very stormy conditions there in Southern California. You can see that curl of rotation right there. LA is located right here, San Diego right there, and that rotation located right about there. So that's the upper level low. It's pushing out east into the deserts. And looks like another wave approaching. See that right there? And out ahead of it, you can see this very patchy stratocumulus. Now, usually when you're dealing with upper level systems, it's better to look at the upper level satellite products, such as water vapor, because you can kind of see that there's some striations in this cloud mass that look like that, but they're kind of hard to pick out because of that background stratocumulus. So let's switch over and check it out. So there you go. It really stands out a lot better, doesn't it? You can see the system there in the LA region. To the south of that, you can see the mid-level subsidence, the yellow colors, and kind of a similar picture there off the northwest coast of San Francisco. And just west of that, some more subsidence. So you definitely want to use those water vapor imagery products. They can kind of pick out a lot of what's going on in the upper levels. So how about that Pacific system? Can we detect that on cross sections? Well, why don't we give it a try? Let's try going from the LA area. See, we're on the weathernerds.org site, very cool website. What we want to do is go into cross-section mode, and we need to draw that out. So I'm going to go across that system, out into Arizona, through the front, and out into the warmer air mass. Now, let's go ahead and just pick up a little bit of that Texas cold air outbreak. So let's grab the whole ball of wax, and yeah, let's keep going out into the tropical regions of Louisiana. Okay, so got that. Let's get that cross-section and see what we got. All right, to understand this, first we need to double-check that that line is drawn the way we wanted it. And yeah, that looks good. So about the halfway point, that's what you want to do. Look at that on the map. The halfway point is going to be about El Paso. So that's going to be right in here. All right. So obviously this is the Davis Mountains, and we can certainly see that frontal boundary right through here. And keep in mind that this is a cross-section, okay? Those of you who are not familiar with this, obviously those are the mountains right there. 10,000 feet is about right there. 20,000 is about right here, and 30,000 feet is about right here. All right, so we do see that frontal boundary. There it is. And I don't know if it quite goes up. Yeah, it's probably doing something like that right there. So this is the cold air mass out over the Midland, Fort Stockton, San Angelo area. These black lines are indicating potential temperature. This is basically just isotherms corrected down to near sea level. See, normally your temperature falls with height, and we want to kind of remove that effect, and that's what we're doing, showing these black lines. These are isotropes, so it's just a way of visualizing temperature. So here you can see the temperature gradient associated with that cold front, and then it looks like the warmest air is located right here. See how when we are right there, you go this way, you get into colder air, the values drop from 304 down to 295. So yeah, you're dropping into colder air. You go horizontally the other way, we drop from 304 to 301, so it's cooling again. So it's quite obvious that the warmest air mass is right there around the El Paso area. So referring back to our surface map, this is definitely the tropical air right in here. We know that for sure. All right, so let's keep going west. Well, as we get off the plateau region, yeah, it is starting to drop in terms of temperature. Now, I think because of the slope of the isotropes right in here, I think there could be kind of a mid-level front located right here. So that's up above Arizona and the California deserts. I'm not sure that quite carries down to the surface. So yeah, it does lose its definition, but in the mid-levels, around 700 millibars to 500 millibars, we would almost certainly find that mid-level front in that area. So that should stack down to the surface, and we should find it theoretically in Arizona somewhere. And you can definitely see the cold core low. See how the isotherms, the purple, dips down? Those are colder temperatures dipping down towards the ground. And isotropes dip upwards, also showing the effect of cold air. There's the picture in the southeastern U.S. Well, the Gulf is sort of open, not much of a pressure gradient. You can see the 1020 line is out there, 1016. So not a whole lot of velocity involved bringing that moisture north, but it is coming up, bringing some 60s up into maybe about 100 miles inland right there. But you can see up near the front, they haven't had much recovery. 36 degree dew points, that's very dry there. So I'm sure, even though it's in the moist sector technically, things are probably very high-based. And up to the north, warm front from about Cincinnati out to southern West Virginia and out to Norfolk. And north of that, some very cool weather. We'll switch over and look at that on the northeast U.S. map. There's the northeast U.S. Man, it is cold. 34 there at Erie with snow coming down. 34 also with snow at Detroit. This is not something we're used to seeing as we go into the second half of April, but it is happening. And there's our Bear Clinic low right there, south of Indianapolis, and I'm sure that's moving in an easterly direction. So we should see the weather start to deteriorate in places like Pittsburgh and Beckley and Washington, D.C. and Binghamton. Also, we got this little cold air advection trough in Wisconsin. We can see by the thickness that it's not really tied to anything. This is actually back in the cold sector itself. Let me back that up a little bit. Yeah, that's about where we're at right now. So that's part of the chunk of cold air coming across the Great Lakes. So that's not going to have much support going on at the surface. There's a good shot showing the very strong air mass modification taking place over Ontario, Quebec, and New England. Got that cold air rolling down from the Hudson Bay region, getting warmed up by the ground there, so you end up with a cold over warm situation, and that means that we get development of these convective elements. And down to the south, there's that baroclinic cloud mass, and beneath that, the frontal system. So that's a very classic look right there. And that's zooming in on that cloud mass around Ottawa, Toronto and Montreal. I'm sure these elements are very vertical, probably a bit bumpy too, so flights going in and out of some of those Eastern Canadian airports probably getting a bit of chop there on takeoff and descent. And there's the Pacific Northwest, another cyclone coming through Saskatchewan and Manitoba, bringing another Alberta clipper southward. And south of that, we've got a lee side trough there in Montana and Wyoming. That's mostly just due to conservation of angular momentum as the upper level winds and the mean mid-tropospheric flow moves west to east and the column expands. And with that, we tend to get some falling pressures. And kind of a mild day out in the northwest U.S. Well, actually, the whole thing is the northwest U.S., but talking about Washington and Oregon, the Pacific Northwest. Yeah, things are very mild. Lower 60s and some upper 50s. And just a very quick look at Europe. Obviously not as much fun as what we have in North America, but that little system that we had off the coast of Portugal there, I think that's starting to come together. I was having trouble finding a boundary. It looked like it was in this area. And I think today it's sort of resolved itself. So I've got that cold front right there. Mild conditions just to the west of that. But out here in the warm sector, you can see very warm conditions, almost up to 70 degrees, 20 Celsius in parts of southern Germany and eastern France. And north of that, much cooler northeast winds coming off the North Sea there. London only up to about 50 degrees, and even cooler, mid-40s there up in Scotland. And that's being driven by this 1024 millibar high that's off the top of the frame way up there. So there's how things look for this evening, pretty close to what we saw there on the surface analysis. We're going to have that high pressure area moving south through Kansas and Missouri, and that'll drive that front into the southeastern U.S. Also out there in the Pacific, well, it's not really clear what's going on with that little upper level system, but let's see. Yeah, there it is right there over the LA area. It looks like it's somewhat linked up with this weak front that has not really done much over the past couple of days. It's probably in the process of falling apart there. So let's go into Saturday evening. So there's the picture we're looking at for Saturday evening. I can see that little upper level system has moved inland. We find that over northwestern Arizona right there. And that's probably pushed that frontal boundary southeastward into the El Paso area. It looks like it's starting to link up with that warm front that's coming north in Texas. The southeastern U.S. system has made a quick exit to the east. So high pressure will be moving into the Carolinas. And up to the north, here comes that next system out of Canada, driven by this 1016 millibar high in Saskatchewan. So it looks like that frontal boundary in Texas starts to consolidate and move eastward into Louisiana and Mississippi. So it looks like another chance of thunderstorms once again for the southeastern U.S. That Canadian system looks like that moves through the Great Lakes area. The tail end right out here is a little bit uncertain. It looks like that becomes replaced by this next Alberta clipper coming southeast out of Saskatchewan. And out on the Rockies, it looks like this one little area, that's probably a good indication that we have some upper level lift. Maybe some cold air aloft working on the area. And in this case, it is a upper level low coming in from the Pacific Northwest. And there it is, Saturday morning. Keep an eye on this as we move up to Sunday evening. See, there it is. Starting to open up there, but we do have the lift out ahead of that. So that'll be producing some of those snow showers there over Utah, Colorado. And it is in the process of dissipating. Looks like a new wave coming in from the west. It'll move through the San Diego, LA area during the day on Monday and then shift eastward into Texas for Tuesday. And that next system coming in for Wednesday looks much stronger. It's a good chunk of upper level lift. There it goes out into the northeast U.S. for Friday. And then we get a bit of ridging building in from the west. So that's going to change the pattern quite a bit, that ridging. And it's not quite as high amplitude, so we're not driving in these cold air masses from Alaska, Yukon, and Northwest Territories. So this is kind of like a Pacific zonal flow, but there's enough ridging in there to keep things kind of clear. So it looks like by next weekend, not this weekend, but next weekend, towards the last week of April, should have some good weather in the western and central U.S. All right, that's about all I got for this evening. For this weekend, we have the supporter-only stream. So if you're a supporter and you have an active Patreon donation, you will get that email with the link to the stream this weekend. Haven't decided if that's going to be Saturday or Sunday. If you're a supporter, watch your notifications and you'll get the link for that private stream. If you want to become a supporter and get in on the stream this weekend, you can still do that. Here's the link. Look up at the top of your screen and click that, and that will take you to the Patreon sign up. And for the rest of you, we will see you again on Tuesday. Take care and have a great weekend.